World leaders and changemakers. Martin Luther King Jr., the dream that changed America. Imagine a world divided not just by opinions, but by the color of one's skin. Into this world, on January 15, 1929, a boy named Michael King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia. We would come to know him as Martin Luther King Jr., a name that would echo through history. Growing up in the segregated South, young Martin experienced firsthand the sting of prejudice. He was a bright kid, so bright he skipped 2 grades and entered Morehouse College at just 15. His father and grandfather were both Baptist ministers, and the church was the center of their community. It was here, surrounded by faith and a strong sense of justice, that the seeds of his future were sown. He saw how the church could be a powerful force for social change, a place of strength and hope for a community facing daily injustices. After graduating from Morehouse, he continued his education at Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania. This was a pivotal time. He was introduced to the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi and the philosophy of nonviolent resistance. The idea that one could fight oppression not with fists, but with love, courage, and peaceful protest captivated him. He realized this was the weapon he had been searching for, a way to challenge an unjust system without losing one's own humanity. This philosophy, satyagraha, or truth force, would become the bedrock of his entire life's work. He earned his doctorate from Boston University, where he also met the love of his life, Coretta Scott, a talented and passionate woman who would become his partner in both life and the struggle for freedom. In 1954, Dr. King and Coretta moved to Montgomery, Alabama, where he became the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. Life was about to change dramatically. A year later, on a crisp December day, a seamstress named Rosa Parks refused to give up her bus seat to a white man. Her arrest was the spark that ignited a fire. The black community in Montgomery was outraged and ready for action. They needed a leader, someone to channel their frustration into a constructive movement. They chose the charismatic 26-year-old pastor, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to lead what would become the Montgomery Bus Boycott. For 381 days, an entire community walked, carpooled, and stood together, refusing to ride the segregated buses. The boycott was a tremendous test of endurance and faith. King and his family faced constant threats. Their home was bombed. He was arrested, but through it all, he preached nonviolence. He reminded his followers that their fight was not against people, but against the injustice of the system itself. His powerful speeches, delivered from the pulpit and at mass meetings, gave people the courage to keep going. He framed the struggle in moral and spiritual terms, giving it a power that went beyond mere politics, and it worked. In 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. It was a monumental victory, proving that nonviolent resistance could bring about real, tangible change in America. The Montgomery Bus Boycott catapulted Dr. King onto the national stage. He was no longer just a pastor from Alabama. He was the face of a burgeoning civil rights movement. In 1957, he co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC, an organization dedicated to using nonviolent direct action to dismantle segregation across the South. The SCLC, with King at its helm, organized voter registration drives, sit-ins, and marches. They targeted cities where segregation was most deeply entrenched. One of the most significant campaigns took place in Birmingham, Alabama, one of the most segregated cities in the nation. The protests were met with brutal force. The world watched in horror as television news showed police turning high-pressure fire hoses and attack dogs on peaceful demonstrators, including children. The images were shocking, and they forced America to confront the ugly reality of its racial injustice. From a Birmingham jail cell, King penned one of the most important documents of the civil rights era, his letter from Birmingham jail. In it, he eloquently defended the strategy of nonviolent protest, explaining why the oppressed cannot wait indefinitely for justice. He wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." His words resonated across the country and the world, galvanizing support for the movement. The pressure became immense, and the campaign in Birmingham ultimately led to the desegregation of the city's public facilities. It was a hard-won battle that demonstrated the moral power of their cause. The momentum was building, leading to the historic March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in August 1963. Over 250,000 people, black and white, gathered in the nation's capital in a massive, peaceful demonstration for equality. Standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. King delivered the speech that would define his legacy. He began by speaking of the unfulfilled promise of freedom for African Americans, but then he shifted, sharing his vision for the future. "I have a dream," he declared, his voice ringing with passion and hope. He dreamed of a day when his 4 little children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. The "I Have a Dream" speech was more than just a speech. It was a prophecy, a prayer, a powerful call to the conscience of a nation. It captured the hopes and frustrations of millions and articulated a vision of an integrated and beloved community. Its impact was immediate and profound. It helped to build the public support necessary for major civil rights legislation. The following year, in 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law, a landmark piece of legislation that outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. For his tireless efforts and unwavering commitment to nonviolence, Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize that same year, the youngest recipient at the time. But the work was far from over. The Civil Rights Act addressed segregation, but it didn't guarantee the right to vote. So in 1965, the movement turned its focus to Selma, Alabama, where systemic barriers prevented black citizens from registering to vote. The first attempt at a march from Selma to the state capital of Montgomery was met with horrific violence on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, an event that became known as Bloody Sunday. Again, the televised images of state troopers brutally attacking peaceful marchers shocked the nation and spurred a new wave of outrage. King led a second symbolic march, and then, under federal protection, a third, full march to Montgomery. The pressure was unstoppable. A few months later, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a crucial law that removed barriers to black suffrage. In the later years of his life, Dr. King expanded his focus. He began to see the fight for civil rights as part of a larger struggle for human rights, what he called the triple evils of racism, poverty, and war. He spoke out against the Vietnam War, arguing that it drained resources that could be used to fight poverty at home. He began organizing the Poor People's Campaign, a multicultural coalition aimed at demanding economic justice for all poor Americans. This was a radical vision that challenged the very economic structure of the country. His stance was controversial, and it alienated some of his former allies. But for King, justice was indivisible. He believed you could not fight for racial equality without also fighting for economic equality and peace. Tragically, he would not live to see this new campaign to its fruition. In April 1968, he traveled to Memphis, Tennessee, to support sanitation workers who were on strike for better wages and working conditions. On the evening of April 4th, as he stood on the balcony of his motel, an assassin's bullets struck him down. Martin Luther King Jr. was just 39 years old. The news of his death sent shockwaves of grief and anger across the nation and the world. Riots erupted in cities across America, a tragic and ironic response to the death of the nation's greatest advocate for peace. The dream did not die on that balcony in Memphis. Though his life was cut short, Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy is immeasurable. He taught the world that the fight for justice could be waged with dignity and love. His philosophy of nonviolence inspired and continues to inspire movements for freedom and equality across the globe. From the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa to pro-democracy movements in Asia and beyond, his life is a testament to the power of one individual's courage and conviction to change the course of history. His dream of a world where people are judged by the content of their character remains the guiding star for all who continue the march toward justice, equality, and peace for all humankind. Thank you so much for watching. If this story inspired you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more stories of the leaders who changed our world. We'll see you in the next one.